Constitutional Officers Association, the Officers Association, excuse me, has informed us that they are going to try to change statute and give themselves a compensation increase this next legislative session. We obviously have concerns with that. They will get a 1% cost of living adjustment as our, I believe, state employees, but we will be discussing this all with you at a later point. But they have notified us that they're interested in pursuing that in statute.
And the next item is in regard to governance. Any changes?
No recommended changes on behalf of ACCG staff.
Hearing no comments. Next item, nepotism in county governments.
How do we want to deal with that?
This committee had made that decision on behest of a past president who recommended the policy position approximately 2 years ago. The committee voted in favor and it was passed out.
Again, this doesn't say what type of policy.
There could always be a recommendation and vote to remove it.
It's a waste of time. No things to do with
I think it's needed in some places more than others. That'd be my personal opinion. Any other comment?
I think that one of the key phrases is that apply to county employees generally, including constitutional officers and their employees. That's where the gap is.
Yeah, the discussion was if a county adopts a personnel policy dealing with it, that the constitutional officers also be subjected to it.
But it's optional.
I believe the position would get at the county could require it of the constitutional officers. I mean, yes, it would be optional for the county to adopt it.
Yes.
I can see in the larger counties, you might want to just do away with that, but in the small counties, I don't speak for everybody, but I know I'm in a small county, and that can be a problem. And so I would definitely like to have help in that field.
Yeah, and the position, all it states is if you adopt one, that it applies to the constitutional officer. That's all it states. It's not forcing you to adopt one.
Charges only done once we change it at this point.
Well, we can do it real quick.
All right.
But there's not necessarily changes.
Passport fees?
Yes.
All right. Next item, copying and storing of newspapers by clerk of court, sheriff, and probate judge.
No suggested
Comment?
changes?
Next item, eliminate outdated notice requirements in the legal organ.
We'll continue to work on this. You can bet that the Georgia Press Association has significant opposition. Stay tuned.
Next item, part-time solicitors' expenses.
We had an issue, or one county several years ago, that got this policy in the platform. Unless I hear or we hear that it's an ongoing issue with several counties, staff would recommend y'all's consideration on eliminating this policy position from the platform. And again, today won't do it, but it would be recommended for a vote at next committee meeting.
Comments? Next item, county employee mandates.
No recommended changes?
Comments? All right, next item, increase ACCG training stipend and establish continuing education requirements.
There are no recommended changes other than suggesting changing the word stipend to supplement throughout, but no substantive recommendations. Now, this is where y'all are asking that the state increase your training stipend from over $100. And if you don't continue to go through our certified training program, that stipend can be removed. I just wanted to make sure that the committee understands what's before them today, or has been approved by the committee.
Should I change the word stipend to what?
Stipend is supplement.
Why not salary?
Right.
No, in statute, it's actually referred to as a supplement.
Okay.
These are our lawyers at work.
They determine.
Yeah. Joe, thanks.
Okay, I would just, the chair would like to ask for some clarity on the training program itself. I think there is some questions out there about, you know, once you become certified, then what next, and what that training program is about. So I would like some clarity on that.
I mean, we have volumes written on our do lifelong learning training at ACCG. I'm not sure what type of clarification or further.
You need a committee working on that now?
Yeah, the training committee is meeting in June.
Yeah,
The training committee's working on that now.
Okay.
so I think
If
that
you have
that,
time for the next meeting, you might have a report on that.
I mean, what language in here is of concern, or was clarification needed, Madam Chair?
well, just is it still a certificate program in the second phase? How long do you need to, how do you progress through the training program? I think needs to be clarified.
We can get that information. Mr. Clint Mueller, ACCG.
Well, I was talking to Jeff Christie, staff's on training program to ACCG on the way down there, but I know the training committee will be meeting this summer, looking at the, after you get your basic certification, there's now an annual continuing education requirement for those who aren't grandfathered in, plus you have these specialty tracks. So I think the question is there any additional compensation for completing any of the specialty tracks once you've completed those? And that's something that will get discussed. But this statement is currently in the platform is fairly general. And well, I guess we'll get to this committee decides if you all want to be any more specific than you currently are based on whatever the training committee may recommend over the summer.
I think it'd be helpful to have an update at the next meeting and just have a discussion on it.
Will do.
That's a good thought, good thought.
In addition, when you're considering that, I hope we will never see some of the challenges we've had financially as a county anytime again in the near future. But with the cost of the training, certainly I think there should be a caveat that we look at that as a factor too, because sometimes training may not be something that's possible for a county based on cost factors.
And are you referencing specifically commissioners training through ACCG, or, I mean, okay. That may be beneficial input to those serving on ACCG's training committee.
And
Yes.
who would you contact on that? Because I was thinking about more webinars to replace some of that training expense.
I know that the committee's looking into that as well.
I'm looking at that. I sat in on those, all that's being looked at
Mhm.
right
We're
now.
looking into that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not on that committee, but I sat in on it.
All right, good comments. Next item, subdivision regulations. Next item under appropriation is libraries. No changes.
No, ma'am.
Georgia Cooperative Extension Funding. Comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
anticipated that being done earlier. May I suggest that that be updated for the next meeting?
Which one?
The extension? Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much for your comments and participation. Let's move on down the agenda to new items. Todd, I believe you were going to provide an update.
Well, there's a few updates. I did want to, and I failed to bring it up earlier. We have a policy position on, and have had legislation introduced on constitutional officers keeping certain fees as personal compensation. It's an old antiquated compensation system whereby they'll perform a service using county staff time, equipment, supplies, overhead, etc., yet reap the financial gain from keeping passport application fees processed usually by your superior court clerks, in some cases your probate judges. Whether or not they should keep this money as personal compensation, we're vehemently opposed. We've had legislation introduced in the past 3 years that would turn that money over to the county governing authority to run the operations. You could then decide whether or not an additional salary increase, whatever materials were needed at the clerk's office. I will tell you that unfortunately, all legislation dealing with clerks is dead on arrival in the Georgia House of Representatives due to their close, from the Speaker's office. Let's put it that way. It's not moving anywhere in the House. So that's what hiccup we run into with anything that impacts clerks through the clerk association as opposed to. In fact, last year, we had significant, Clint, do you have a minute to update us on 250, was it the property tax bill? I mean, just in short, not only are they able to stop bills, but they're able to stop our legislation unless we don't give them favorable salary supplements in addition above what they're already receiving from the county governing authority. Clint, would you like to elaborate just briefly?
Well, that was billed this year.
Yeah.
They had no problem with the underlying bill, but they saw it as a vehicle to get a salary increase and demanded that we give it to them or they would kill the whole bill. And we got the bill through the House and the Senate, and then it had to come back to the House. And we stripped off their salary supplement out of the Senate and then went back to the House. They basically said, no deal. And so,
And have not we been put under notice that the similar fate would await any other bills up until where they get an additional supplement, Clint?
well, on property tax bills, yes, which there's some of them I'd be glad for them to do.
That's where we stand, ma'am.
There were property tax bills and it involved the clerk getting a fee?
Yes, the fee that they want is for their board, running boards of equalization, that was your duty placed on them about 3 or 4 years ago, and they claim that none of the county commission in the state gave them any resources to run the boards of equalization, and they need personal compensation. Now, they're not really in this bill asking for resources for running the BOE. What they're asking for is that they get about a $6,000 a year increase to their own personal compensation mandated for them doing that.
That's chump change compared to
Yeah, you're right, it is.
and you know what, even though I clearly hear what you're saying, I think it would be wrong for ACCG still not to take a strong stand against these other fees because it's in there.
It's in here. No, there's no doubt about our position on that. It's clearly outlined in the platform. I'm just asking, no.
I mean, people are outraged and,
They should be outraged at the House for not passing this legislation is where they should be outraged at.
So they put it on us as a county for not managing better, and oversight on our parts, which it is not. So, we were able to get our clerk to publicly say she would contribute a third of it back to the general fund after a year of having to do a couple of furloughs. But, I think the only way you're gonna get that moving anywhere is just to drive it through the media.
I would agree 100%. If there's interest in any of y'all's communities to help generate this within the media, I mean, the people need to know where this money is going, who's actually spending the money to make it happen, who's keeping it, at what expense. I think they would be quite shocked at the racket.
Well, not only did our clerk go in and make all kinds of upgrades and repairs for seating and waiting rooms for our passport applicants, I mean, it's really unbelievable that one person can have that much opportunity in a community when you're having people furloughed and budget cuts and things like that.
Well, any legislation to keep it in check, remember, there's a rather significant stumbling block. Clint, real quick.
One thing we like to do, but this is going to require your assistance to make this happen, we would like to send out basically a short survey to all the counties in the state, asking you to tell us how much your clerk's collecting in passport fees, how much you're paying your probate judge or whoever for some of you for vital records, the tax commission for collecting city property taxes. And some of you may know that, some of you may not. If you don't know it, you have to get it. Obviously, I think all of it, if it came down to it, would be subject to open records request. So you may have to do an open records request from the constitutional officer to get it. And I think if we can get it on all 159 counties, but we really need that, be able to go to the media, be able to go to the General Assembly, because we don't have good numbers right now on just what that looks like across the state.
And I'm not sure that is privy to open records request because it is the passport fees and it's perceived as their income. It's not open to open records.
Well, see, we disagree with that because, first of all, their county salary is open to open records. And this is money that they are generating using county resources. And anytime you touch county resources, it's subject to open records. So I think we could, if they want to use that defense, I think we could then get the Attorney General involved, which I don't think they want to get the Attorney General involved in that, and have him, if we have to, opine on that.
Well, let me tell you.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
In Newton County, that actually was the question, and she was asked to provide that information. She flat out said no, and
Can you give me that documentation? 'Cause we'll take that documentation and turn it over to the Attorney General and have him
Okay.
deal with it.
All right, very good.
A couple of other new positions that the committee may want to consider. I mentioned that the weapons gun legislation, it's not going to end, it won't. Last year, there was a couple other provisions or bills that would directly impact counties. One of them would authorize firefighters, whether or not they're full-time or voluntary, to carry weapons, and that decision would not be made by the county governing authority. That would be made to your fire chief. That's a lot of liability. You're opening your right for civil rights cases. I'd suggest a weapons policy platform position that would incorporate that any decision made by, or for any employee to carry a weapon or a gun on your staff be made by the county governing authority. Second, there was provision, and this will come every year, to start off or allowing free weapons carry permits by military personnel. Military personnel are great, I understand, I respect, and we get in the arguments all day about the merits of their service for the country, and I agree, and they can contribute, but these licenses cost money, and someone's going to pay for it, and currently y'all are spending $42 a piece. We're not opposed to that, but I would suggest a policy platform position that authorizes the county governing authority to make the determination whether or not to grant free licenses to military or any other class of individuals based on the merits of the community's decisions at that point. I would like to just come back with a draft policy position on those. I know the gun issues are touchy. I don't want to jump in the middle of the debate, but those decisions that impact y'all's budget and y'all's employees and y'all's liability need to be made by county commissioners. As far as study committees, we have been approached by Easy Corp, which is one of the nation's largest providers of pawn shops, or I guess in the industry. They met with us in Gwinnett, and what they want to do is standardize. There's a big part of state statute that spells out specifically as a pawn shop operator the procedures, the rates, what you have to go through to operate a pawn shop, the information you have to obtain. In addition to that, we have several counties that have gone above and beyond that, and it's been challenged in court and upheld, of what they require pawn operators, I'm not sure what you call them anymore, that operate within their communities. We're going to be meeting with Easy Corps. I know Gwinnett and Cobb County are both greatly impacted by any changes in state law. I don't know if it calls for a study committee, but I would like to get an update from them and have this committee vote after we've had these discussions, because when they call for state standardization, this is similar to what they did with metal theft a few years ago. If there are to be, they're going to say no stricter local requirements. So if there's going to be a state across the board standardized regulation, we need to ensure that it empowers counties like Gwinnett, Cobb to actually utilize the tools they're currently utilizing to ensure that they're not taking in stolen property. If there is, they can identify it and get it to its rightful owner. But I would recommend that we hear from Gwinnett staff at next meeting on whether or not it's recommended that ACCG take a policy position. Yes, sir.
Is one of the things electronic reporting to the sheriff's office?
Yes. That's one that, I mean, obviously they don't want to do it, and if they do, they want to call, they want it standardized. I can understand that from having 159 different versions, but one of the things that they're targeting, in addition to state law, are the data systems that are used at the local level to collect the data, usually by, via the vendor or the pawnbroker themselves, through the police, accessed by the police, the terminals, that sort of thing. Yes, that would be directly targeted by any of these negotiations.
So do we think a study committee is warranted here?
If there are those that are willing, whose counties have something above state law, let's form a study committee and get back, work together with us and get back to the committee. So yeah, Madam Chair, that's an excellent recommendation.
So I guess we'll look into counties that would be good fits and reach out to those people, or how are we going to go about this?
I would ask right now if there are anyone within this room that would volunteer to help serve on the study
I
committee.
see a volunteer in the back of the room.
Well, it's Gwinnett. Thank you, Susan.
Well, we're already involved, so, and Todd mentioned the metal theft law. We asked that be handled because there were problems with that, and when we talked with the pawnbrokers of Easy Corps, my comment to them was we asked for the metal theft law because our folks were struggling with all of the metal theft that was going on. We're not asking for this because we don't see that it's broken in Gwinnett County the way that we handle it, and I'm sure maybe some of your other counties. Our
Anyone else interested in helping with that?
No volunteers? Let me ask you this. You're on. Would you like to as well? It wouldn't require too much time. I just need, you get it into your staff's hand. Just put me in touch with your staff that handles it, and we can work it out. You make the executive decision.
I'll be on it too. Or have someone on it from Fulton.
Okay. I have two announcements when we're wrapping up.
We had about the contractors on here too. And salary schedule increases. You want to talk about any of those?
I did talk about that one. There's legislation, the general contractors or some of the plumbing, HVAC, electrical contractors have come to us, and their concern is that the state is not enforcing whether or not these contractors are properly licensed to conduct business within your community. They want to authorize counties and cities and local governments, to ask for and I'm not sure how this currently works, I haven't researched it, to ask for the ID, B, or certification. B, if they don't, that local governments have the ability to fine them, and that C, the local governments can keep the fines. Obviously, this is an industry that doesn't want unsavory characters that are not licensed working. This is Bruce Widener, Jim, as the representative. But they want to recommend that